Hello, and welcome to MidPointe Library's Oral History Project. Would you please tell us your name and your current position with the library?
My name is Ross Brown. I'm the IT director.
Hi, thank you, Ross. Thank you for joining us. We're going to start off with a simple one. How long have you been with the library?
Total, about 41 years. Some of that also includes contract worker before I was formally hired.
You want to tell us a little bit more about that? How did you become a contract worker? Like, what was that process like?
What they were doing is what they called was a retrospective conversion. So they were adding barcodes to all of the books, and we created short records and input them into an Apple IIe. That data was then sent off to a conglomerate of records that they then gave us a full bib record. It wasn't so great, but it worked out. But yeah, we grabbed carts of books and we just input them in the computer, and we did that at every location. And it was supposed to be just over the summer, and it took about 6 months. And then they had another project for me after that.
So how did you get involved with that original project?
My mother worked here at that time and said, "Hey, they're looking to hire people." And I was on break from school, and so that's how I got here.
Now, did you intend to stay, or did...
No, never. It was supposed to be a summer project. And then when they said, "Hey, this is still going," it's like, well, I can kind of put off school for a little bit. And so then I put it off for a while, and then I started in the spring again, and they said, "Hey, we have another project. You want to come back?" And so I started working again.
So what was that position when you got hired beyond the contract?
It was still kind of in the same process of getting data into our computer system and getting patron data into the computer system as well. So originally we started out with just the material, all the items, that type of thing. And then we started adding all the patrons, but we still missed a lot of stuff that wasn't in there. And a lot of the records came back with no information. So then we had to manually input them. But there was another whole department that did that, but I assisted with that because I knew about computers, but computers were relatively new to everybody.
So what was the system like before?
We had a mainframe, and then what they called were dumb terminals. They looked like beehives, like what you'd see on a tree. They kind of looked like a beehive, and so that's what we ended up calling them. But they were essentially dumb terminals with just characters on the screen, and you had to do weird things to make things move. There was no mouse or anything like that. So that's how we entered stuff into the computer, and we had data connections between our locations that were kind of like typewriter slow.
That's pretty amazing. So what was your day-to-day like? Just explain your day-to-day.
We input data. Part of what I had, I didn't have an office or anything because I really wasn't, I was an afterthought of running the data part of it. So I actually sat at the reference desk. And so I input data, and I also answered reference questions and made library cards and those type of things, just the normal day-to-day business of the library, but I also input data at the same time.
And what branch were you working at?
Middletown.
Were there any other branches at the time?
There was Trenton and there was Westchester.
Okay. So when did your job transition to what it is now? I want to ask, I guess.
About 1992. Prior to that, they had me doing more and more. They had somebody over me that was in charge, and that person left. And then they finally said, "We really need somebody that's in charge of this." So that's when they put me in charge of it. So that's about 1992, somewhere right around there.
Perfect. I guess the next question was like, you kind of already talked about like the library was like when you started. Can you kind of talk about some of the ways the library's changed since you've been here? You already mentioned a few, but any more?
Internet. So the internet came about, we actually got it about 1996. We had a big grand opening thing with the governor came on site, and so that was kind of exciting for us. But internet was a big thing. And then after that, it was for us changing ILS systems. I call it ILS. It's an integrated library system. It's basically our catalog. Those were big things that were new and exciting. So you get the internet, and then you end up putting your catalog out on the internet. And so those were exciting things and big changes for the library that were different, going from physical to digital things that were just out for everybody to have access to.
Can you talk about some of maybe the challenges with those changes?
Getting people to accept those things. They were just not used to having those things available or even having access to it, because a lot of people did not have internet access. You're still talking people were using their phones for internet access, or I say phones, landlines for internet access. And so it was relatively slow. And if you used your landline for internet access, then you couldn't use your phone either. So there was challenges there getting people to actually accept it. And we had more traffic coming in instead of people just viewing us from the internet.
I'm going to ask, I know the library itself has grown over the years. We started off in Middletown. Can you kind of speak to how the library, like how you've seen the library grow from like just physical Middletown to those branches in Trenton and Westchester to now almost 5 branches?
Well, it was kind of interesting because Middletown was brand new when I first started. And the other locations were Trenton was in an old house, Westchester was in a leased office space, and then soon after that, Westchester got its own building, so that was nice and brand new. And then it took a while for Trenton to get that kind of building, and then we've just grown since then. And those are big projects that are also exciting, but sometimes daunting. Like opening up the new Westchester Library was a daunting task. I had a part-time person with me, and that was all the help I had. So it was a pretty big project. So those are interesting things to work through.
How big is your department now?
I have 2 people directly under me, and I have the makerspace is under me as well right now.
That's pretty interesting. How does that work, having the makerspace in IT?
That was done mostly because of COVID, where we shut down everything and we had to let a lot of people go. And so when we come back, we didn't really have a makerspace, but we needed some of the services that the makerspace offered for the library. So we brought back a person that could operate that so we could have access to it, and they knew what they were doing because I didn't.
Has it been fun for you learning the new pieces and technologies for the makerspace?
Yes, absolutely. Some of the things that they do and some of the projects that people actually come in with are really interesting and really creative.
Can you tell me about a favorite memory or project related to the library that you've worked with?
Probably opening up Westchester was probably my most favorite and challenging project, just because the building was so big and it took a while, and there was only me and one other person actually trying to get it together. But it was fun to actually see that building being built.
Now, how's that compare to the opening of our new Liberty branch, which will open in 2025?
It's not as big, and I have more help now, so I can actually delegate some of that work to other people. But we're just in the beginning stages right now of me doing actual work for that. There was some work in the beginning as we designed it, but after that, I've just kind of been on the sidelines.
Was there anything special that went into the opening of Liberty in the mall? Any special considerations with that unique space? Not really.
Other than the challenge of the space itself. We have a very small space that is actually library, and then the rest is open to anybody that wants to use it. And so moving things in and out is not my challenge, but that's a challenge for the staff there. So that was very different from what we're used to as a traditional library, of having a space where we leave all of our materials out and then we close the building. So that's a little bit different and unusual for a library.
And I think I forgot to ask, what is your day-to-day like now? What do you do? Yeah.
I do more management than actual hands-on. There are things hands-on, but since there's only 3 of us and there's 6 buildings, we do move around and do a lot of hands-on, but we also have remote access to most of the things that we need to do. But day-to-day, I go anywhere from doing interviews to swapping out a mouse. So those type of things, crawling under desks, still do that. So yeah, it's the whole gamut from pulling cables to doing management. things.
What IT needs does a library have?
So we have computers in almost every location, but we're a data center as well. So we have the 5 buildings all have internet access, but they also have access to Middletown, which is the main data center. And so we have lots of servers that operate different things, but we have tried to move those out and be hosted out on the web.
How was it working with your mother?
Well, we were in different departments, so but I would always come up and talk to my mother. I would come and spend 5 minutes and talk to my mother every day, just to say hi. But we were in different departments, so we didn't see each other. And I typically, when I first started working here, I worked evenings. So I would come in, and at the end of my day was doing data backups, because that was more of a physical thing at that point. So working with my mother was interesting. The very first time I toured this building, I was very surprised that the director at that time smoked, and he was allowed to smoke in the building. And I was really, I don't smoke, so that was really kind of shocking to me to walk in. I was also young, to walk into an office, I'll say an office environment, and people were smoking. It's like, oh, that's interesting.
Different times.
Yes, and now we don't allow smoking on the property.
Are there any other memories, something that stands out to you over your 41 years?
Probably the biggest thing is the internet was going from, we had those data lines between buildings that were very temperamental and had to be looked at all the time, and made sure that they kept going, because branches would go down. And once you got used to having that access to our server and being able to check customers in and out and look up items for them, and then that goes away, it's a problem for your staff, because you adapt to that, and then you don't have a way of going back. Your card catalogs are not kept up to date anymore, so they can't look those things up for customers. So we depend on that, and we've depended on the internet since then. And I'll say it's scary, but also it's a great product to have for our customers.
What do you think the biggest challenge the library is today?
Converting from physical items to digital items, how that will play out in the future.
And then I'll just end. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Not at this time.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you.